Welcome, everyone. Let's dive into this intriguing discussion on how the USA's own actions have set the stage for a united front between Russia and China.
Yep. So the idea is that the West's interference and misplaced priorities have inadvertently pushed these states closer together, right?
Exactly. It's like a perfect storm. The West, while condemning Russia's war in Ukraine, conveniently forgets its own meddling, like Victoria Nuland handpicking leaders in Ukraine and NATO's relentless eastward push.
Yeah, that contradiction really stands out, calling out aggression, yet undermining stability through its own actions.
Right, and this dynamic essentially turned what some call Kissinger's nightmare into a reality. I mean, think about it. A united Russia and China is exactly the kind of scenario that top strategists like Kissinger warned about.
Yep. It's almost ironic, isn't it? The very policies meant to sustain global order end up shaking it up entirely.
For sure. And then there's the concept of spheres of influence. While the West takes a moral high ground, it's overlooking its own sphere of interference. NATO's eastward expansion, for instance, has shifted the game.
Yeah. So, what do you think is at the core of this current geopolitical reconfiguration?
Well, it's like, the move from a unipolar, America dominated order towards a multipolar world with different power centers asserting their own security interests. This reconfiguration is further deepened by a mix of broken promises and inconsistent policies from the West.
Right. It almost seems like the West's actions have not only been hypocritical, but also self-defeating. I mean, if you're interfering in one region, you'll get pushback in another.
Exactly, and that pushback is visible in how Russia's stance has shifted, especially regarding NATO.
Yep. Speaking of NATO, isn't it interesting that Russia's perception of this alliance, which used to be viewed as just a military safeguard, has now been recast as a direct threat?
Absolutely. Since the 1990s, Russia's view has transformed. What was once seen, as a protective alliance, has increasingly become an encroaching presence, almost a
True.
provocation.
That really puts into perspective the blame game the West is playing. They decry interference, yet their own actions pretty much fuel the tension.
And then you have the question of neutrality. There's a growing argument that in a multipolar world, neutrality might actually serve as a tool to de escalate conflicts for smaller states caught in the middle.
Right, that's a unique perspective. I get that, but don't you think that complete neutrality is a bit idealistic given the intense competitive power politics?
Well, that's a fair point. I mean, neutrality, in this context, doesn't mean total isolation. It means avoiding unnecessary alliances that could drag a nation into the crossfire.
So, you're suggesting that neutrality could serve as a buffer for countries trying to avoid the repercussions of great power rivalries?
Exactly. It's like offering a diplomatic safety net. By choosing neutrality, smaller nations can focus on their own security without getting entangled in the broader ideological battles.
True. And this discussion ties back to the idea of spheres of influence. The West's aggressive reach might be counterproductive if it drives other nations towards alternative blocs.
Yes, and that's the irony. The very actions taken to safeguard interests can end up reconfiguring the geopolitical landscape in ways that diminish those interests.
Right. Now, can we circle back to the historical angle? What about comparing the current state of affairs to, say, decisions made by figures like Trump, Gorbachev, or Deng Xiaoping? There's some fascinating commentary on that, no?
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting to note that the final remarks in this discussion bring in comparisons between these leaders. Trump, for instance, with his unorthodox approach, Gorbachev's attempts at reform, and Deng Xiaoping's pragmatic modernization, all of which reflect different strategies in handling global power dynamics.
Quite the mix. But isn't it a bit of a stretch to align these figures with the current scenario? They came from very different contexts after all.
True, but what they have in common is the maneuvering around heavy geopolitics, each in their own era. It's like drawing lessons from history to understand today's challenges.
Yeah, I see your point. I guess the main lesson here is that history tends to repeat itself when you mix power play, unchecked interference, and shifting alliances.
Exactly. The dynamics at play now, whether it's Russia opposing NATO expansions or China's alignment with Russia, echo previous global reconfigurations, albeit in a more complex multipolar setting.
Yep. And this complexity, it seems, is largely born from the West's inability to maintain consistent principled policies, right?
Right. The West's selective memory on what constitutes interference versus support has led to these bifurcated alliances and even hostility.
Totally. So, when we look at, say, the Ukraine conflict, its roots are not simply about regional disputes, but tie back to these much broader maneuvers.
Exactly, which, as argued, includes broken promises on NATO expansion and deliberate undermining of agreements like the Minsk Accords.
Yep, spot on. There's a clear thread here of inconsistent strategic priorities. The West criticizes Russia, yet plays a role in paving the way for increased tensions that tend to justify Russia's posture.
Yes, it's a sort of double standard. The policy of convenient interference, calling it support when it suits, but then decrying it when it's strategically useful to enemies.
And that hypocrisy, in many ways, is what fuels the realignment. I mean, if smaller countries see the inconsistency, they might be more inclined to lean towards neutrality as a survival strategy.
Precisely. It's about finding a way to remain secure without becoming pawns in a larger game.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. But here's a thought. Could embracing neutrality backfire in the long run, given that global power rivalries rarely stay stagnant?
That's a valid concern. I think the argument, though, is not for complete detachment, but rather strategic non-alignment, which grants flexibility. It's like having an open door policy without inviting unnecessary conflicts.
I get it. So, in your view, neutrality here is less about isolation and more about smart, pragmatic diplomacy?
Exactly. It's about an approach that, prioritizes self-interest and security over ideological battles imposed by external forces.
Yeah, precisely. This discussion really opens up broader questions about the nature of power and influence in today's multipolar world.
Absolutely. And it begs the question, if the West continues its current policies, will we see more unintended alliances like Russia and China intensifying their ties? Or can a reformed diplomatic strategy, like true neutrality, rebalance the scales?
Definitely food for thought. It's almost like watching a chess game where the moves not only affect the square you're on, but the entire board.
Exactly. It's like every move in global diplomacy can ripple outwards, sometimes in unpredictable and even dangerous ways.
Right. And so, while the West might not see it at first, its own actions could very well be crafting a scenario where the old guard of power is supplanted by a completely new order.
Yup, and that's why understanding these shifts, recognizing the double standards, and maybe even rethinking neutrality as a viable strategic tool is so important for the future of international security.
Absolutely.